Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Dhena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Sarasatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye. Hare Krishna. Today I'll be reading from the Brhad-Bhagavatam, 10th canto, chapter 36, the slaying of Arishta, the bull demon. Shukadeva Goswami said, the demon Arishta, this is 10:36:1, came to the cowherd village, appearing in the form of a bull with a large hump. He made the earth tremble as he tore it apart with his hooves. Purport: according to the Sri Vishnu Purana, Arishtasura entered Krishna's village at twilight as the Lord prepared to dance with the gopis. Once, midway through the period of dusk, when Lord Janardhan was eager to perform the rasa dance, Arishtasura madly entered the cowherd village, terrifying everyone. Text 2. Arishtasura bellowed very harshly and pawed the ground. With his tail raised and his eyes glaring, he began to tear up the embankments with the tips of his horns, every now and then passing a little stool and urine. My dear king, clouds hovered about the sharp-horned Arishtasura's hump, mistaking it for a mountain. And when the cowherd men and ladies caught sight of the demon, they were struck with terror. Indeed, the strident reverberation of his roar so frightened the pregnant cows and women that they lost their fetuses in miscarriages. Purport: the Vedic literature categorizes miscarriages as follows: A chaturtad bhavets srava pata punchama shashtayoho ata urvam prasuti syat. Up to the 4th month, a premature delivery is called srava. In the 5th and 6th months, it is called pata. And after this, it is considered a birth, prasuti. 5. The domestic animals fled the pasture in fear. O king, and all the inhabitants rushed to Lord Govinda for shelter, crying, Krishna, Krishna! When the Supreme Lord saw the cowherd community distraught and fleeing in fear, he calmed them, saying, don't be afraid. Then he called out to the bull demon as follows. You fool! What do you think you're doing, you wicked rascal, frightening the cowherd community and their animals when I am here just to punish corrupt miscreants like you? Having spoken these words, the infallible Lord Hari slapped his arms with his palms, further angering Arishta with the loud sound. The Lord then casually threw his mighty serpentine arm over the shoulder of a friend and stood facing the demon. Purport: Lord Krishna showed his contempt for the ignorant demon. 9. Thus provoked, Arishta pawed the ground with one of his hooves, and then, with the clouds hovering around his upraised tail, furiously charged Krishna. Pointing the tips of his horns straight ahead and glaring menacingly at Lord Krishna from the corners of his bloodshot eyes, Arishta rushed toward him at full speed like a thunderbolt hurled by Indra. The Supreme Lord Krishna seized Arishtasura by the horns and threw him back 18 steps, just as an elephant might do when fighting a rival elephant. Thus repulsed by the Supreme Lord, the bull demon got up and, breathing hard and sweating all over his body, again charged him in a mindless rage. As Arishta attacked, Lord Krishna seized him by the horns and knocked him to the ground with his foot. The Lord then thrashed him as if he were a wet cloth. And finally he yanked out one of the demon's horns and struck him with it until he lay prostrate. Vomiting blood and profusely excreting stool and urine, kicking his legs and rolling his eyes about, Arishtasura thus went painfully to the abode of death. The demigods honored Lord Krishna by scattering flowers upon him. Having thus killed the bull demon Arishta, he who is a festival for the gopis' eyes entered the cowherd village with Balaram. Purport: this verse exemplifies the sublime contrast of spiritual qualities within Sri Krishna. In one 4-line verse, we simultaneously learn that Lord Krishna killed a powerful and wicked demon, and that his boyish beauty gave festive pleasure to his young girlfriends. Lord Krishna is as hard as a thunderbolt or as soft as a rose, depending on our attitude toward him. The demon Arishta wanted to kill Krishna and all his friends, so the Lord beat him into a wet rag and killed him. The gopis, however, loved Krishna, and thus the Lord boyishly reciprocated their conjugal feelings. Can this come down just a tad? Down a little. After Arishtasura had been killed by Krishna, who acts wonderfully, Narada Muni went to speak to King Kamsa. That powerful sage of godly vision addressed the king as follows. Purport: the term Deva Darshan can be understood in many ways, all of which are consistent with the context and purport of this narration. Deva means God, and Darshanaha means seeing or an audience with a great personality. Thus, Deva Darshana, a name for Narada Muni, indicates that Narada has attained the perfection of seeing God, that getting Narada's audience is as good as getting God's, since Narada is a pure representative of the Lord, and also that Narada's audience is as good as that of the demigods, who are also known as Devas. That there are all these meanings of the term Deva Darshana reveals something of the richness of the Srimad Bhagavatam's language. From the Puranas, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has quoted 20 verses describing a joking conversation between Radha and Krishna that took place after Krishna had killed the demon Arishta. This conversation, so kindly quoted by the Acharya, describes the origin of Radhakund and Shamakund, Radha's and Krishna's bathing ponds. The verses are as follows. The innocent young gopis said, "Ah, Krishna, don't touch us now, O killer of a bull. Alas, even though Arishta was a terrible demon, he was still a male cow, so you will have to undergo atonement, just as Lord Indra did after killing Vritrasura. But how can you purify yourself without going to the trouble of visiting every single holy place in the 3 worlds?" Krishna replied, "Why should I have to wander throughout the entire universe? I will at once bring all the countless pilgrimage places here and take my bath in them. Just watch." With this, Lord Mukunda struck his heel on the ground. Then he said, "This is the water of the Bhagavati river, coming from the Patala region. And now, O holy places, all of you, please come here." When the Supreme Lord had spoken these words, all the holy places went there and appeared before him. Krishna then addressed the gopis as follows. "See all the holy places." But the gopis replied, "We don't see them as you describe." Then those best of holy places, joining their palms in supplication, spoke up. "I am the salt ocean. I am the ocean of milk. I am the Amara Dirghika. I am the river Shona. I am the river Sindhu. I am the Tamraparni. I am the holy place Pushkar. I am the river Saraswati. And we are the Godavari, Jamuna, Reva rivers, and the confluence of the rivers at Prayag. Just see our waters." After purifying himself by bathing, Lord Hari became quite arrogant and said, "I have produced a pond containing all the various holy places, whereas you gopis must never have executed any religious duties on this earth for the pleasure of Lord Brahma. Then Srimati Radharani addressed her girlfriends as follows. I must create an even more beautiful pond. So go to work. Having heard these words, the gopis saw that Aristasura's hooves had dug a shallow ditch just west of Sri Krishna's pond. At that nearby spot, all the gopis began digging up lumps of soft mud with their hands, and in this way a divine pond manifested in the short span of an hour. Krishna was astonished to see the lake they produced. He said, Go ahead, lotus-eyed one. You and your companions should fill this pond with water from mine. But Radha replied, No, 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 no. No, 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 no. This is impossible, since the water of your pond is contaminated by your terrible sin of killing a cow. I will have my countless gopi companions bring the pure water of the Manasa Ganga here in billions of pots. In this way, I will fill this lake with my own water and thus make its renown unequaled in the entire world. Lord Krishna then gestured to a heavenly personality who was an intimate associate of all the holy places. Suddenly that person rose up out of Krishna's pond and bowed down to the daughter of Sri Vrishabhanu, Radharani. Then, with palms joined and tears pouring from his eyes, he began praying to her in devotion. O goddess, even Lord Brahma himself, the knower of all the scriptures, cannot understand your glories. Nor can Lord Shiva or Lakshmi. Only Krishna, the supreme goal of all human endeavor, can understand them. And thus he feels obliged to personally make sure that you can wash away your perspiration when you are fatigued. He is always anointing your lotus face with nectarian charu and yavaka and decorating them with ankle bells. And he rejoices and feels most fortunate simply by satisfying the tips of the toes of your lotus feet. On his order, we have immediately come here to live in this most excellent pond, which he created by one stroke of his heel. But only if you now feel satisfied with us and bestow upon us your merciful glance will the tree of our desire bear fruit. Hearing this prayer spoken by the representative of the full assembly of holy places, Sri Radha was pleased and said, So kindly tell me your desire. They then told her plainly, Our lives would be successful if we could come to your pond. That is the benediction we desire. Glancing at her beloved from the corners of her eyes, the daughter of Vrishabhanu replied with a smile, Please come. Her gopi companions all agreed with her decision and became immersed in the ocean of happiness. Indeed, the beauty of all creatures, both mobile and stationary, was enhanced. Thus, gaining the grace of Srimati Radharani, the holy rivers and lakes in Sri Krishna Kund forcibly broke through its boundary walls and swiftly filled Radha Kund with their waters. Lord Hari then said, My dear Radha, may this pond of yours become even more world-renowned than mine. I will always come here to bathe and to enjoy my water pastimes. Indeed, this lake is as dear to me as you are. Radha replied, I will come to bathe in your pond as well, even though you may kill hundreds of Arishta demons here. In the future, anyone who has intense devotion for this lake, which is on the spot where you chastised Aristasura, and who bathes or resides here, is sure to become very dear to me. That night, Lord Krishna initiated a rasa dance at Radhakund, generating a torrent of the greatest mood of splendorous pleasure. Sri Krishna resembled a cloud, and Srimati Radharani a brilliant flash of lightning filling the sky with abundant beauty. In this way, their divine glories permeated the expanses of the three worlds. As a final note, it should be mentioned that Narada Muni, being a great sage, understood that the killing of Arishta more or less concluded the pastimes of Krishna in Vrindavan. Therefore, Narada, anxious to facilitate the transferal of Krishna's pastimes to Mathura, approached Kamsa and addressed him as follows. 17. Narada told Kamsa, Yashoda's child was actually a daughter, and Krishna is the son of Devaki. Also, Rama is the son of Rohini. Out of fear, Vasudeva entrusted Krishna and Balaram to his friend Nanda Maharaj. And it is these two boys who have killed your men. Purport. Kamsa had been led to believe that Krishna was the son of Yashoda and that Devaki's eighth child had been a daughter. The identity of Devaki's eighth child was extremely important to Kamsa because a prophecy had foretold that her eighth child would kill him. Here, Narada informs the king that the eighth child of Devaki was the formidable Krishna, thus implying that the prophecy should be taken very seriously. Having received this information, Kamsa obviously will now do everything in his power to kill Krishna and Balaram. 18. Upon hearing this, the master of the Bhojas became furious and lost control of his senses. He picked up a sharp sword to kill Vasudeva. But Narada restrained Kamsa by reminding him that it was the two sons of Vasudeva who would cause his death. Kamsa then had Vasudeva and his wife shackled in iron chains. Purport. Kamsa realized that there was no use in killing Vasudeva, since it was Vasudeva's sons, Krishna and Balaram, who were to kill him. According to the Acharyas, Narada also advised Kamsa that if he killed Vasudeva, the two young boys might flee, and that it was therefore better not to kill him. Rather, Narada recommended Kamsa should bring Krishna and Balaram to Kamsa's capital city, Mathura. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti points out that Narada did not act inimically toward the great devotees, Vasudeva and Devaki, when he revealed this information to Kamsa. In fact, as explained in the 11th canto, Vasudeva was grateful to Narada because he was arranging for Kamsa's death at Krishna's hands, and further arranging for Krishna to come and live in Mathura, where his loving father could associate with him. 20. After Narada left, King Kamsa summoned Keshi and ordered him, "Go kill Rama and Krishna." Before having Krishna and Balaram brought to Mathura, Kamsa tried sending one more demon to Vrindavan. The king of the Bhojas next called for his ministers, headed by Mushtika, Chanura, Shala, and Toshala, and also for his elephant keepers. The king addressed them as follows. My dear heroic Chanura and Mushtika, please hear this. Rama and Krishna, the sons of Anakadundubi, Vasudeva, are living in Nanda's cowherd village. It has been predicted that these two boys will be the cause of my death. When they are brought here, kill them on the pretext of engaging them in a wrestling match. Erect a wrestling ring with many surrounding viewing stands and bring all the residents of the city and the outlying districts to see the open competition. Purport. The words manchaha refers to platforms constructed with large pillars. Kamsa wanted a festive atmosphere so that Krishna and Balaram would not be afraid to come. 25. You, elephant keeper, my good man, should position the elephant Kuvalayapida at the entrance to the wrestling arena and have him kill my two enemies. Commence the bow sacrifice on the Chaturdashi day in accordance with the relevant Vedic injunctions. In ritual slaughter, offer the appropriate kinds of animals to the magnanimous Lord Shiva. Having thus commanded his ministers, Kamsa next called for Akrura, the most eminent of the Yadus. Kamsa knew the art of securing personal advantage, and thus he took Akrura's hand in his own and spoke to him as follows. My dear Akrura, most charitable one, please do me a friendly favor out of respect. Among the Bhojas and the Vrishnis, there is no one else as kind to us as you. Gentle Akrura, you always carry out your duties soberly, and therefore I am depending on you, just as powerful Indra took shelter of Lord Vishnu to achieve his goals. Please go to Nanda's village, where the two sons of Anakadundubi are living, and without delay, bring them here on this chariot. Purport. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti gives the following interesting note. When King Kamsa said, with this chariot, he pointed with his index finger to a brand new attractive chariot. Kamsa thought that since Akrura was innocent by nature, when he saw this fine new vehicle, he would naturally want to drive it and quickly bring the two boys back. But the actual reason Akrura went on a new chariot was that it would have been clearly inappropriate for the Supreme Personality of Godhead to mount a chariot that had already been enjoyed by the wicked Kamsa. The demigods who are under the protection of Vishnu have sent these two boys as my death. Bring them here, and also have Nanda and the other cowherd men come with gifts of tribute. After you bring Krishna and Balaram, I will have them killed by my elephant, who is as powerful as death himself. And if by chance they escape from him, I will have them killed by my wrestlers, who are as strong as lightning. When these two have been killed, I will kill Vasudeva and all their lamenting relatives, the Vrishnis, Bhojas, and Dasharhas. Purport. Even today, there are wicked political leaders throughout the world who make such plans and even carry them out. I will also kill my old father, Ugrasena, who is greedy for my kingdom, and I will kill his brother, Devaka, and all my other enemies as well. Then, my friend, this earth will be free of thorns. My elder relative, Jarasandha, and my dear friend, Dwidvid, are solid well-wishers of mine, as are Shambhara, Naraka, and Bhana. I will use them all to kill off those kings who are allied with the demigods, and then I will rule the earth. Now that you have understood my intentions, please go at once and bring Krishna and Balaram to watch the bow sacrifice and see the opulence of the Yadu's capital. Sri Akrura said, O king, you have expertly devised a process to free yourself of misfortune. Still, one should be equal in success and failure, since it is certainly destiny that produces the results of one's work. An ordinary person is determined to act on his own desires even when fate prevents their fulfillment. Therefore, he encounters both happiness and distress. Yet even though such is the case, I will execute your order. Purport. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti explains that although what Akrura said was courteous and encouraging, his hidden meaning was far different. What he really meant was this: your plan is not fit to execute, yet I will carry it out, since you are the king and I am your subject, and in any case, you are about to die. Shukadeva Goswami said, having thus instructed Akrura, King Kamsa dismissed his ministers and retired to his quarters, and Akrura returned home. Thus end the purports of the humble servants of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada to the 10th canto, 36th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Slaying of Arishta, the Bull Demon. Chapter 37, The Killing of the Demons Keshi and Vyoma. Text 1. Shukadeva Goswami said, the demon Keshi sent by Kamsa appeared in Vraja as a great horse. Running with the speed of the mind, he tore up the earth with his hooves. The hairs of his mane scattered in the clouds and the demigods' airplanes throughout the sky, and he terrified everyone present with his loud neighing. When the Supreme Personality of Godhead saw how the demon was frightening his village of Gokula by neighing terribly and shaking the clouds with his tail, the Lord came forward to meet him. Keshi was searching for Krishna to fight, so when the Lord stood before him and challenged him to approach, the horse responded by roaring like a lion. Seeing the Lord standing before him, Keshi ran toward him in extreme rage, his mouth gaping as if to swallow up the sky. Rushing with furious speed, the unconquerable and unapproachable horse, demon, tried to strike the lotus-eyed Lord with his two front legs. But the transcendental Lord dodged Keshi's blow, and then, with his arms, angrily seized the demon by the legs, whirled him around in the air, and contemptuously threw him the distance of 100 bow lengths, just as Garuda might throw a snake. Lord Krishna then stood there. Upon regaining consciousness, Keshi angrily got up, opened his mouth wide, and again rushed to attack Lord Krishna. But the Lord just smiled and thrust his left arm into the horse's mouth as easily as one would make a snake enter a hole in the ground. Keshi's teeth immediately fell out when they touched the Supreme Lord's arm, which to the demon felt as hot as molten iron. Within Keshi's body, the Supreme Personality Godhead's arm then expanded greatly, like a diseased stomach swelling because of neglect. Purport: Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti points out that although Lord Krishna's arm is more tender and cooling than a blue lotus, to Keshi it felt extremely hot, as if made of lightning bolts. As Lord Krishna's expanding arm completely blocked Keshi's breathing, his legs kicked convulsively, his body became covered with sweat, and his eyes rolled around. The demon then passed stool and fell on the ground dead. The mighty-armed Krishna withdrew his arm from Keshi's body, which now appeared like a long karkatika fruit. What kind of fruit? Do you have any karkatika fruits? Without the least display of pride, and having so effortlessly killed his enemy, the Lord accepted the demigods' worship in the form of flowers rained down from above. I like that without the least display of pride at having so effortlessly killed his enemy. He's so cool. My dear king, thereafter Lord Krishna was approached in a solitary place by the great sage among the demigods, Narada Muni. That most exalted devotee spoke as follows to the Lord, who effortlessly performs his pastimes. Purport: After speaking with Kamsa, Narada went to see Lord Krishna. The Lord's Vrindavan pastimes were nearly completed, and Narada wanted to see those he would enact in Mathura. O Krishna, Krishna, unlimited Lord, source of all mystic power, Lord of the universe, O Vasudeva, shelter of all beings and best of the Yadus. O Master, you are the supreme soul of all created beings, sitting unseen within the cave of the heart like the fire dormant within kindling wood. You are the witness within everyone, the Supreme Personality and the ultimate controlling deity. You are the shelter of all souls, and being the Supreme Controller, you fulfill your desires simply by your will. By your personal creative potency, you manifested in the beginning the primal modes of material nature, and through their agency you create, maintain, and then destroy this universe. You, that very same Creator, have now descended on the earth to annihilate the Daitya, Pramatta, and Rakshasa demons who are posing as kings, and also to protect the godly. The horse demon was so terrifying that his neighing frightened the demigods into leaving their heavenly kingdom. But by our good fortune, you have enjoyed the sport of killing him. In just 2 days, O Almighty Lord, I will see the deaths of Chanura, Mushtika, and other wrestlers, along with those of the elephant, Kuvalayapida, and King Kamsa, all by your hand. Then I will see you kill Kalayavana, Mura, Naraka, and the conch demon. And I will also see you steal the Parijata flower and defeat Indra. I will then see you marry many daughters of heroic kings after paying for them with your valor. Then, O Lord of the universe, in Dwarka you will deliver King Nriga from a curse and take for yourself the Shamantaka jewel together with another wife. You will bring back a Brahman's dead son from the abode of your servant Yamaraj, and thereafter you will kill Pundraka, burn down the city of Kashi, and annihilate Dantavakra and the king of Chedi during the great Rajasuya sacrifice. I shall see all these heroic pastimes along with many others you will perform during your residence in Dwarka. These pastimes are glorified on this earth in the songs of transcendental poets. Subsequently, I will see you appear as time personified, serving as Arjuna's chariot driver and destroying entire armies of soldiers to rid the earth of her burden. Let us approach you, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for shelter. You are full of perfectly pure spiritual awareness and are always situated in your original identity. Since your will is never thwarted, you have already achieved all possible desirable things. And by the power of your spiritual energy, you remain eternally aloof from the flow of the qualities of illusion. I bow down to you, the Supreme Controller, who are dependent only on yourself. By your potency, you have constructed the unlimited particular arrangements of this universe. Now you have appeared as the greatest hero among the Yadus, Vrishnis, and Sattvatas, and have chosen to participate in human welfare. Shukadeva Goswami said, having thus addressed Lord Krishna, the chief of the Yadu dynasty, Narada bowed down and offered him obeisances. Then that great sage and most eminent devotee took his leave from the Lord and went away, feeling great joy at having directly seen him. After killing the demon Keshi in battle, the Supreme Personality of God had continued to tend the cows and other animals in the company of his joyful cowherd boyfriends. Thus he brought happiness to all the residents of Vrindavan. One day the cowherd boys, while grazing their animals on the mountain slopes, played the game of stealing and hiding, acting out the roles of rival thieves and herders. In that game, O king, some acted as thieves, others as shepherds, and others as sheep. They played their game happily, without fear or of danger. A powerful magician named Vyoma, son of the demon Maya, then appeared on the scene in the guise of a cowherd boy. Pretending to join the game as a thief, he proceeded to steal most of the cowherd boys who were acting as sheep. Gradually, the great demon abducted more and more of the cowherd boys and cast them into a mountain cave, which he sealed shut with a boulder. Finally, only 4 or 5 boys acting as sheep remained in the game. Lord Krishna, who shelters all saintly devotees, understood perfectly well that Vyomasura was what he was doing. Just as a lion grabs a wolf, Krishna forcefully seized the demon as he was taking away more cowherd boys. The demon changed into his original form, as big and powerful as a great mountain. But try as he might to free himself, he could not do so, having lost his strength from being held in the Lord's tight grip. Lord Achyuta clutched Vyomasura between his arms and threw him to the ground. Then, while the demigods in heaven looked on, Krishna killed him in the same way that one kills a sacrificial animal. Purport: the Acharyas inform us that sacrificial animals were killed by means of strangulation. 33. Krishna then smashed the boulder blocking the cave's entrance and led the trapped cowherd boys to safety. Thereafter, as the demigods and cowherd boys sang his glories, he returned to his cowherd village, Gokula. Thus end the purports of the humble servants of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada to the 10th canto, 37th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Killing of the Demons Keshi and Vyoma. Chapter 38, Akrura's Arrival in Vrindavan. Shukadeva Goswami said, after passing the night in the city of Mathura, the high-minded Akrura mounted his chariot and set off for the cowherd village of Nanda Maharaj. Purport: King Kamsa ordered Akrura to go to Vrindavan on the Ekadashi of the dark fortnight of the Vedic month of Phalgun. After spending the night in Mathura, Akrura left early the next day. That morning, Narada offered his prayers to Krishna in Vrindavan, and in the afternoon the demon Vyoma was killed there, At dusk, Akrura entered the Lord's village. 2. As he traveled on the road, the great soul Akrura felt tremendous devotion for the lotus-eyed personality of Godhead, and thus he began to consider as follows. What pious deeds have I done? What severe austerities undergone? What worship performed or charity given, so that today I will see Lord Keshava? Since I am a materialistic person absorbed simply in sense gratification, I think it is as difficult for me to have gotten this opportunity to see Lord Uttama Shloka as it would be for one born a Shudra to be allowed to recite the Vedic mantras. But enough of such talk. After all, even a fallen soul like me can have the chance to behold the infallible Supreme Lord, for one of the conditioned souls being swept along in the river of time may sometimes reach the shore. Today, all my sinful reactions have been eradicated and my birth has become worthwhile, since I will offer my obeisances to the Supreme Lord's lotus feet, which mystic yogis meditate upon. Indeed, today, King Kamsa has shown me extreme mercy by sending me to see the lotus feet of Lord Hari, who has now appeared in this world. Simply by the effulgence of his toenails, many souls in the past have transcended the insurmountable darkness of material existence and achieved liberation. Purport: Akrura noted how ironic it was that the envious demoniac Kamsa had given him an extraordinary blessing by sending him to see the Supreme Lord Krishna. Everyone okay? Those lotus feet are worshipped by Brahma, Shiva, and all the other demigods, by the goddess of fortune, and also by the great sages and Vaishnavas. Upon those lotus feet, the Lord walks about the forest while herding the cows with his companions, and those feet are smeared with the kumkum from the gopis' breasts. Surely I shall see the face of Lord Mukunda, since the deer are now walking past me on my right. That face, framed by his curly hair, is beautified by his attractive cheeks and nose, his smiling glances, and his reddish lotus eyes. Purport: Akrura saw an auspicious omen, the passing of the deer on his right, and thus felt sure he would see the Supreme Lord Krishna. I am going to see the Supreme Lord Vishnu, the reservoir of all beauty, who by his own sweet will has now assumed a human-like form to relieve the earth of her burden. Thus, there is no denying that my eyes will achieve the perfection of their existence. He is the witness of material cause and effect, yet he is always free from false identification with them. By his internal potency, he dispels the darkness of separation and confusion. The individual souls in this world who are manifested here, when he glances upon his material creative energy, indirectly perceive him in the activities of their life airs, senses, and intelligence. Purport: in this verse, Akrura establishes the all-powerful position of the Supreme Lord, whom he is about to see in Vrindavan. The false concept of separation from the Lord is described in the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam. Vayam dvitiya binibeshita syad ishad apetasya viparyayo smitihi. Although all existence emanates from the absolute truth, Krishna, we imagine a second thing, this material world, to be entirely separate from the Lord's existence. With this mentality, we try to exploit that second thing for our sense gratification. Thus, the psychological underpinning of material life is the illusion that this world is somehow separate from God and therefore meant for our enjoyment. It is ironic that the impersonal philosophers, in their radical renunciation of this world, claim it to be utterly false and totally separate from the Absolute. Unfortunately, this artificial attempt to divest this world of its divine nature, or in other words, its relation to God, does not lead people to utterly reject it, but rather to try to enjoy it. While it is true that this world is temporary and thus, in one sense, illusory, the mechanism of illusion is a spiritual potency of the Supreme Lord. Realizing this, we should immediately desist from any attempt to exploit this world. Rather, we should recognize it as God's energy. We will actually give up our material desires only when we understand that this world belongs to God and is therefore not meant for our selfish gratification. The word abiyate here refers to a process of surmising the presence of the Lord through meditative introspection. This process is also described in the second canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Bhagavan sarvabhuteshu lakshata swatmana hari drishyar bhudyadibir drashta lakshanar anumapakai. The personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna, is in every living being along with the individual soul, and this fact is perceived and hypothesized in our acts of seeing and taking help from the intelligence. Akura states that the Lord is free from the egotistic pride afflicting ordinary embodied souls. Yet the Lord appears to be embodied like everyone else, and therefore someone might object to the statement that he is free of egoism. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti comments on this puzzle as follows: how can we distinguish between being free of false ego and being afflicted by it? If a living entity is situated in a body, argues the objector, he will encounter the unhappiness and confusion that occur within it, just as a person living in a house, whether he be attached to it or not, cannot avoid experiencing the darkness, warmth, and cold that occur within it. This objection is answered as follows: by his internal potency, the Lord dispels the darkness of ignorance along with the separateness and bewilderment it produces. Text 12. All sins are destroyed and all good fortune is created by the Supreme Lord's qualities, activities, and appearances, and words that describe them animate, beautify, and purify the world. On the other hand, words bereft of his glories are like decorations on a corpse. Purport: Srila Sridhar Swami brings up the following possible objection. How can one who is devoid of ordinary ego, who is fully self-satisfied, engage in pastimes? The answer is given here. Lord Krishna acts on the pure spiritual platform for the pleasure of his loving devotees, not for any kind of mundane gratification. 13. That same Supreme Lord has descended into the dynasty of the Sattvatas to delight the exalted demigods who maintain the principles of religion he has created. Residing in Vrindavan, he spreads his fame, which the demigods glorify in song and which brings auspiciousness to all. Today I shall certainly see him, the goal and spiritual master of the great souls. Seeing him brings jubilation to all who have eyes, for he is the true beauty of the universe. Indeed, his personal form is the shelter desired by the goddess of fortune. Now all the dawns of my life have become auspicious. Then I will at once alight from my chariot and bow down to the lotus feet of Krishna and Balaram, the supreme personalities of Godhead. Theirs are the same feet that great mystic yogis striving for self-realization bear within their minds. I will also offer my obeisances to the Lord's cowherd boyfriends and all the other residents of Vrindavan. And when I have fallen at his feet, the Almighty Lord will place his lotus hand upon my head. For those who seek shelter in him, because they are greatly disturbed by the powerful serpent of time, that hand removes all fear. By offering charity to that lotus hand, Purandara and Bali earned the status of Indra, king of heaven, and during the pleasure pastimes of the rasa dance, when the Lord wiped away the gopis' perspiration and removed their fatigue, the touch of their faces made that hand as fragrant as a sweet flower. Purport. The Puranas call the lotus found in the Manasa Sarovar lake Saugandhika. Lord Krishna's lotus hand acquired the fragrance of this flower by coming in contact with the beautiful faces of the gopis. This specific incident, which occurred during the Rasa Leela, is described in the 33rd chapter of the 10th canto. The infallible Lord will not consider me an enemy, even though Kamsa has sent me here as his messenger. After all, the omniscient Lord is the actual knower of the field of this material body, and with his perfect vision, he witnesses, both externally and internally, all the endeavors of the conditioned soul's heart. Purport: being omniscient, Lord Krishna knew that Akrura was only externally a friend of Kamsa. Internally, he was an eternal devotee of Lord Krishna. 9. Thus he will cast his smiling, affectionate glance upon me as I remain fixed with joined palms, fallen in obeisances at his feet. Then all my contamination will at once be dispelled, and I will give up all doubts and feel the most intense bliss. Recognizing me as an intimate friend and relative, Krishna will embrace me with his mighty arms, instantly sanctifying my body and diminishing to nil all my material bondage, which is due to fruitive activities. Having been embraced by the all-famous Lord Krishna, I will humbly stand before him with bowed head and joined palms, and he will address me, "My dear Akrura." At that very moment, my life's purpose will be fulfilled. Indeed, the life of anyone whom the Supreme Personality of Godhead fails to recognize is simply pitiable. The Supreme Lord has no favorite and no dearmost friend, nor does he consider anyone undesirable, despicable, or fit to be neglected. All the same, he lovingly reciprocates with his devotees in whatever manner they worship him, just as the trees of heaven fulfill the desires of whoever approaches them. Purport: the Lord says something similar in the Bhagavad Gita 9:29. Altogether, Samoham sarvabhuteshu name dveshyosti na priyaha ye bhajanti tumam bhaktya maite teshu chapyaham. I envy no one, nor am I partial to anyone. I am equal to all. But whoever renders service unto me in devotion is a friend and is in me, and I am also a friend to him. Similarly, Lord Chaitanya was as hard as a thunderbolt for those who envied him, and as soft as a rose for those who understood his divine mission. 23. And then Lord Krishna's elder brother, the foremost of the Yadus, will grasp my hand, my joined hands, while I am still standing with my head bowed, and after embracing me, he will take me to his house. There he will honor me with all items of ritual welcome and inquire from me about how Kamsa has been treating his family members. Shukadeva Goswami continued, "My dear king, while the son of Shwapalka, traveling on the road, thus meditated deeply on Sri Krishna, he reached Gokula as the sun was beginning to set." Purport: Srila Sridhar Swami comments that although Akrura did not even notice the road, being deeply absorbed in meditation on Lord Krishna, he still reached Gokula on his chariot. 25. In the cowherd pasture, Akrura saw the footprints of those feet whose pure dust the rulers of all the planets in the universe hold on their crowns. Those footprints of the Lord, distinguished by such marks as the lotus, barley corn, and elephant goad, made the ground wonderfully beautiful. Increasingly agitated by ecstasy at seeing the Lord's footprints, his bodily hairs standing on end because of his pure love, and his eyes filled with tears, Akrura jumped down from his chariot and began rolling about among those footprints, exclaiming, "Ah, this is the dust from my master's feet." The very goal of life for all embodied beings is this ecstasy, which Akrura experienced when, upon receiving Kamsa's order, he put aside all pride, fear, and lamentation and absorbed himself in seeing, hearing, and describing the things that reminded him of Lord Krishna. Purport: Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti explains that Akrura gave up fear by openly showing his love and reverence for Krishna, even though he or his family might have been punished by the angry Kamsa. Akrura gave up his pride in being an aristocratic member of society and worshipped the cowherd residents of the simple village of Vrindavan. And he gave up lamenting for his house, wife, and family, which were in danger from King Kamsa. Giving up all these things, he rolled in the dust of the lotus feet of God. Akrura then saw Krishna and Balaram in the village of Vraj, going to milk the cows. Krishna wore yellow garments, Balaram blue, and their eyes resembled autumnal lotuses. One of those two mighty armed youths, the shelters of the goddess of fortune, had a dark blue complexion, and the other's was white. With their fine-featured faces, they were the most beautiful of all persons. As they walked with the gait of young elephants, glancing about with compassionate smiles, those two exalted personalities beautified the cow pasture with their impressions of their feet, which bore the marks of the flag, lightning bolt, elephant goad, and lotus. The two lords, whose pastimes are most magnanimous and attractive, were ornamented with jeweled necklaces and flower garlands, anointed with auspicious, fragrant substances, freshly bathed, and dressed in spotless raiment. They were the primeval supreme personalities, the masters and original causes of the universes, who had, for the welfare of the earth, now descended in their distinct forms of Keshava and Balaram. O King Parikshit, they resembled two gold-bedecked mountains, one of emerald and the other of silver. As with their effulgence, they dispelled the sky's darkness in all directions. Akrura, overwhelmed with affection, quickly jumped down from his chariot and fell at the feet of Krishna and Balaram like a rod. The joy of seeing the Supreme Lord flooded Akrura's eyes with tears and decorated his limbs with eruptions of ecstasy. He felt such eagerness that he could not speak to present himself, O king. Recognizing Akrura, Lord Krishna drew him close with his hand, which bears the sign of the chariot wheel, and then embraced him. Krishna felt pleased, for he is always benignly disposed toward his surrendered devotees. Purport: according to the Acharyas, by extending his hand marked with the chariot wheel or chakra, Lord Krishna indicated his ability to kill Kamsa. As Akrura stood with his head bowed, Lord Sankarshan, Balaram, grasped his joined hands, and then he took him to his house in the company of Lord Krishna. After inquiring from Akrura whether his trip had been comfortable, Balaram offered him a first-class seat, bathed his feet in accordance with the injunctions of Scripture, and respectfully served him milk with honey. The Almighty Lord Balaram presented Akrura with the gift of a cow, massaged his feet to relieve him of fatigue, and then, with great respect and faith, fed him suitably prepared food of various fine tastes. Purport: according to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti, Akrura went to Krishna's and Balaram's house on the 12th lunar day, on which one should not break a fast at night. However, Akrura dispensed with this formality because he was eager to receive food in the Lord's house. When Akrura had eaten to his satisfaction, Lord Balaram, the supreme knower of religious duties, offered him aromatic herbs for sweetening his mouth, along with fragrances and flower garlands. Then Akrura once again enjoyed the highest pleasure. Nanda Maharaj asked Akrura, O descendant of Dasharha, how are all of you maintaining yourselves while that merciless Kamsa remains alive? You are just like sheep under the care of a butcher. That cruel, self-serving Kamsa murdered the infants of his own sister in her presence, even as she cried in anguish. So why should we even ask about the well-being of you, his subjects? Honored by Nanda Maharaj with these true and pleasing words of inquiry, Akrura forgot the fatigue of his journey. Thus end the purports of the humble servants of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada to the 10th canto, 38th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Akrura's Arrival in Vrindavan. Chapter 39, Akrura's Vision. Shukadev Goswami said, having been honored so much by Lord Balaram and Lord Krishna, Akrura, seated comfortably on a couch, felt that all the desires he had contemplated on the road were now fulfilled. My dear king, What is unattainable for one who has satisfied the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the shelter of the Goddess of Fortune? Even so, those who are dedicated to his devotional service never want anything from him. Isn't that a beautiful verse? Kim alabhyam bhagavati prasanne Sri Niketane tatapi tatpararajan nahi vanchanti kinchana. Kim, what? Alabhyam is unattainable. Alabhyam, it's unattainable. Bhagavati, the Supreme Lord. Prasanne, being satisfied. Shri, of the Goddess of Fortune. Niketane, the resting place. Tata api, nevertheless. Tatpara, those who are devoted to him. Rajan, O King Parikshit, do not, he indeed, vanchati, desire, kinchana, anything. My dear king, what is unattainable for one who has satisfied the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the shelter of the Goddess of Fortune? Even so, those who are dedicated to his devotional service never want anything from him. 3. After the evening meal, Lord Krishna, the son of Devaki, asked Akrura how Kamsa was treating their dear relatives and friends and what the king was planning to do. The Supreme Lord said, "My dear gentle uncle Akrura, was your trip here comfortable? May all good fortune be yours. Are our well-wishing friends and our relatives, both close and distant, happy and in good health? But, my dear Akrura, as long as King Kamsa, that disease of our family, who goes by the name maternal uncle, is still prospering, why should I even bother to ask about the well-being of our family members and his other subjects? Just see how much suffering I have caused my offenseless parents. Because of me, their sons were killed and they themselves imprisoned." Purport: because Kamsa had heard a prophecy that the 8th son of Devaki would kill him, he tried to kill all her children. For the same reason, he imprisoned her and her husband, Vasudeva. By good fortune, we have today fulfilled our desire to see you, our dear relative. O gentle uncle, please tell us why you have come. Shukadeva Goswami said, in response to the Supreme Lord's request, Akrura, the descendant of Madhu, described the whole situation, including King Kamsa's enmity toward the Yadus and his attempt to murder Vasudeva. Akrura relayed the message he had been sent to deliver. He also described Kamsa's real intention and how Narada had informed Kamsa and Krishna had been born as how Narada had informed Kamsa that Krishna had been born as the son of Vasudeva. Lord Krishna and Lord Balaram, the vanquisher of heroic opponents, laughed when they heard Akrura's words. The lords then informed their father, Nanda Maharaj, of King Kamsa's orders. Nanda Maharaj then issued orders to the cowherd men by having the village constable make the following announcement throughout Nanda's domain of Vraj. Go collect all the available milk products, bring valuable gifts and yoke your wagons. Tomorrow we shall go to Mathura, present our milk products to the king, and see a very great festival. The residents of all the outlying districts are also going. Purport: Nanda wanted to bring ghee and other milk products as taxes for the king. When the young gopis heard that Akrura had come to Vraj to take Krishna and Balaram to the city, they became extremely distressed. Some gopis felt so pained at heart that their faces turned pale from their heavy breathing. Others were so anguished that their dresses, bracelets, and braids became loose. Other gopis entirely stopped their sensory activities and became fixed in meditation on Krishna. They lost all awareness of the external world, just like those who attain the platform of self-realization. Other gopis entirely stopped their sensory activities and became fixed in meditation on Krishna. They lost all awareness of the external world, just like those who attain the platform of self-realization. Purport: the gopis were in fact already on the platform of self-realization. The Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya 20:108 states, Jivara Swarup Hoy Krishnera Nityadas. The self or individual soul is an eternal servant of Krishna. Thus, because they were rendering the most intense loving service to the Lord, the gopis were situated at the highest stage of self-realization. 16. And still other young women fainted simply by remembering the words of Lord Shauri, Krishna. These words, decorated with wonderful phrases and expressed with affectionate smiles, would deeply touch the young girls' hearts. The gopis were frightened at the prospect of even the briefest separation from Lord Mukunda. So now, as they remembered his graceful gait, his pastimes, his affectionate smiling glances, his heroic deeds, and his joking words, which would relieve their distress, they were beside themselves with anxiety at the thought of the great separation about to come. They gathered in groups and spoke to one another, their faces covered with tears and their minds fully absorbed in Achyuta. The gopis said, O Providence, you have no mercy. You bring embodied creatures together in friendship and love and then senselessly separate them before they fulfill their desires. This whimsical play of yours is like a child's game. Having shown us Mukunda's face, framed by dark locks and beautified by his fine cheeks, raised nose and gentle smiles, which eradicate all misery, you are now making that face invisible. This behavior of yours is not at all good. O Providence, though you come here with the name Akura, you are indeed cruel. For like a fool, you are taking away what you once gave us. Those eyes with which we have seen, even in one feature of Lord Madhudvisha's form, the perfection of your entire creation. Purport: the gopis did not care to see anything but Krishna. Therefore, if Krishna left Vrindavan, their eyes would have no function. Thus, Krishna's departure was blinding these poor girls, and in their distress they berated Akura, whose name means not cruel, as cruel indeed. Alas, Nanda's son, who breaks loving friendships in a second, will not even look directly at us. Forcibly brought under his control, we abandon our homes, relatives, children, and husbands just to serve him, but he is always looking for new lovers. The dawn following this night will certainly be auspicious for the women of Mathura. All their hopes will now be fulfilled, for as the Lord of Vraj enters their city, they will be able to drink from his face the nectar of the smile emanating from the corners of his eyes. O gopis, although our Mukunda is intelligent and very obedient to his parents, once he has fallen under the spell of the honey-sweet words of the women of Mathura and been enchanted by their alluring, shy smiles, how will he ever return to us unsophisticated village girls? When the Dasharhas, Bhojas, Andakas, Vrishnis, and Sattvatas see the son of Devaki in Mathura, they will certainly enjoy a great festival for their eyes, as will all those who see him traveling along the road to the city. After all, he is the darling of the goddess of fortune and the reservoir of all transcendental qualities. He who is doing this merciless deed should not be called Akura. He is so extremely cruel that without even trying to console the sorrowful residents of Vraj, he is taking away Krishna, who is more dear to us than life itself. Hard-hearted Krishna has already mounted the chariot, and now the foolish cowherds are hurrying after him in their bullock carts. Even the elders are saying nothing to stop him. Today fate is working against us. Purport: Srila Sridhar Swami reveals what the gopis thought. These foolish cowherd men and elders are not even trying to stop Krishna. Don't they realize that they are committing suicide? They are helping Krishna go to Mathura, but they will have to come back to Vrindavan and will certainly die in his absence. The whole world has become nonsensical. Let us directly approach Madhava and stop him from going. What can our family elders and other relatives do to us? Now that fate is separating us from Mukunda, our hearts are already wretched. for we cannot bear to give up his association even for a fraction of a second. Purport. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti describes what the gopis thought. Let us go right up to Krishna and pull at his clothes and hands and insist that he get down from his chariot and stay with us. We will tell him, don't bring upon yourself the sinful reaction for murdering so many women. But if we do that, said other gopis, our relatives and the village elders will discover our secret love for Krishna and abandon us. But what can they do to us? Yes, our lives are already wretched now that Krishna is leaving. We have nothing to lose. That's right. We will remain in the Vrindavan forest just like presiding goddesses, and then we can fulfill our true desire to stay with Krishna in the forest. Yes, and even if the elders and our relatives punish us by beating us or locking us up, we can still live happily with the knowledge that Krishna is residing in our village. Some of our girlfriends who are not imprisoned will cleverly find a way to bring us the remnants of Krishna's food, and then we can remain alive. But if Krishna is not stopped, we will certainly die. 29. When he brought us to the assembly of the Rasa dance, where we enjoyed his affectionate and charming smiles, his delightful secret talks, his playful glances and his embraces, we passed many nights as if they were a single moment. O gopis, how can we possibly cross over the insurmountable darkness of his absence? Purport. For the gopis, a long time in Krishna's absence passed like a moment. For the gopis, a long time in Krishna's association passed like a moment, and a single moment in his absence seemed like a very long time. 30. How can we exist without Ananta's friend Krishna, who in the evening would return to Vraj in the company of his cowherd boys, his hair and garland powdered with the dust raised by the cow's hooves? As he played his flute, he would captivate our minds with his smiling sidelong glances. Shukadev Goswami said, after speaking these words, the ladies of Vraj, who were so attached to Krishna, felt extremely agitated by their imminent separation from him. They forgot all shame and loudly cried out, "O Govinda! O Damodar! O Madhava!" Purport. For a long time the gopis had carefully hidden their conjugal love for Krishna. But now that Krishna was leaving, the gopis were so distressed that they could no longer hide their feelings. But even as the gopis cried out in this way, Akrura, having at sunrise performed his morning worship and other duties, began to drive the chariot. Purport. According to some Vaishnava authorities, Akrura offended the gopis by not consoling them when he took Krishna to Mathura. And because of this offense, Akrura was later forced to leave Dwarka and be separated from Krishna during the episode of the Shamataka jewel. At that time, Akrura had to take up an ignoble residence at Varanasi. Apparently, Mother Yashoda and other residents of Vrindavan were not crying like the gopis, for they sincerely believed Krishna would be coming back within a few days. Led by Nanda Maharaj, the cowherd men followed behind Lord Krishna in their wagons. The men brought along many offerings for the king, including clay pots filled with ghee and other milk products. With his glances, Lord Krishna somewhat pacified the gopis, and they also followed behind for some time. Then, hoping he would give them some instruction, they stood still. As he departed, that best of the Yadus saw how the gopis were lamenting, and thus he consoled them by sending a messenger with this loving promise, "I will return." Setting their minds after Krishna, the gopis stood as motionless as figures in a painting. They remained there as long as the flag atop the chariot was visible, and even until they could no longer see the dust raised by the chariot wheels. The gopis then turned back without hope that Govinda would ever return to them. Full of sorrow, they began to spend their days and nights chanting about the pastimes of their beloved. My dear King, the Supreme Lord Krishna, traveling as swiftly as the wind in that chariot with Lord Balaram and Akrura, arrived at the river Kalindi, which destroys all sins. Purport. Srila Jiva Goswami comments that Lord Krishna secretly lamented his separation from the gopis. These transcendental feelings of the Lord are part of his supreme pleasure potency. The river's sweet water was more effulgent than brilliant jewels. After Lord Krishna had touched it for purification, he drank some from his hand. Then he had the chariot moved near a grove of trees and climbed back on, along with Balaram. Akrura asked the two lords to take their seats on the chariot. Then, taking their permission, he went to a pool in the Jamuna and took his bath as enjoined in the scriptures. While immersing himself in the water and reciting eternal mantras from the Vedas, Akrura suddenly saw Balaram and Krishna before him. Akrura thought, how can the two sons of Anakaduntubi, who are sitting in the chariot, be standing here in the water? They must have left the chariot. But when he came out of the water, they were on the chariot just as before. Asking himself, was the vision I had of them in the water an illusion? Akrura re-entered the pool. There Akrura now saw Anantashesha, the lord of the serpents, receiving praise from Siddhas, Charnas, Gandharvas, and demons, who all had their heads bowed. The personality of Godhead whom Akrura saw had thousands of heads, thousands of hoods, and thousands of helmets. His blue garment and his fair complexion, as white as the filaments of a lotus stem, made him appear like white Kailas mountain with its many peaks. Akrura then saw the Supreme Personality of Godhead lying peacefully on the lap of Anantashesha. The complexion of that Supreme Person was like a dark blue cloud. He wore yellow garments and had 4 arms and reddish lotus petal eyes. His face looked attractive and cheerful with its smiling, endearing glance and lovely eyebrows, its raised nose and finely formed ears, and its beautiful cheeks and reddish lips. The Lord's broad shoulders and expansive chest were beautiful, and his arms long and stout. His neck resembled a conch shell, and his navel was deep, and his abdomen bore lines like those on a banyan leaf. He had large loins and hips, thighs like an elephant's trunk, and shapely knees and shanks. His raised ankles reflected the brilliant effulgence emanating from the nails on his petal-like toes, which beautified his lotus feet. Adorned with a helmet, bracelets, and armlets, which were all bedecked with many priceless jewels, and also with a belt, a sacred thread, necklaces, ankle bells, and earrings, the Lord shone with dazzling effulgence. In one hand he held a lotus flower, in the other is a conch shell, discus, and club. Gracing his chest were the Srivatsa mark, the brilliant Kaustuba gem, and a flower garland. Encircling the Lord and worshiping him were Nanda, Sunanda, and his other personal attendants, Sanaka and other Kumaras, Brahma, Rudra, and other chief demigods, the 9 chief Brahmanas, and the best of the saintly devotees, headed by Prahlad, Narada, and Uparichara Vasu. Each of these great personalities was worshiping the Lord by chanting sanctified words of praise in his own unique mood. Also in attendance were the Lord's principal internal potencies, Shri, Pushti, Gir, Kanti, Kirti, Tushti, Ila, and Urja. Who can remember those? I didn't say read them, I said... I'll say them again. Gir, Kanti, Kirti, Tushti. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti explains the Lord's potencies mentioned in these verses. Shri is the potency of wealth, Pushti, that of strength, Gir, knowledge, Kanti, beauty, Kirti, fame, and Tushti, renunciation. These are the Lord's 6 opulences. Got it? Ila is his Bhu Shakti, also known as Sandini, the internal potency of whom the element earth is an expansion. Jai, Bhumi Devi ki jai. Urja is his internal potency for performing pastimes. She expands as the tulsi plant in this world. Who expands as the tulsi plant? Vidya and avidya, knowledge and ignorance, are external potencies who cause the living entities liberation and bondage, respectively. Shakti is his internal pleasure potency. Hladini and Maya is an internal potency who is the basis of vidya and avidya. The word cha implies the presence of the Lord's marginal energy, the Jiva Shakti, who is subordinate to Maya. Lord Vishnu was being served by all these personified potencies. As the great devotee Akura beheld all this, he became extremely pleased and felt enthused with transcendental devotion. His intense ecstasy caused his bodily hairs to stand on end and tears to flow from his eyes, drenching his entire body. Somehow, managing to steady himself, Akura bowed his head to the ground. Then he joined his palms in supplication, and in a voice choked with emotion, very slowly and attentively began to pray. Thus end the purports of the humble servants of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada to the 10th canto, 39th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Akura's Vision. And just so you know, that was 41 pages times 3. Triple down economics. I figured out you can make a lot of progress in the Bhagavatam if you do 41 pages times 3, instead of just doing 41 pages. And it doesn't take that much longer. Like today, it was only an hour and 15 minutes. Highly recommended. Because it's important. It's very important to be immersed in the Bhagavatam. Immersion requires a lot of volume. Just like if you want to be immersed in water, you have to have enough volume of water to be immersed in the water. So to be immersed in the pastimes of Krishna, you have to hear them a lot. At least every day, there should be a large doses of this particular medicine. What were your feelings about hearing these pastimes? We'll just take a few responses, because we got more to read, actually, and chant together. Any responses? Were you sleepy? Were you interested? Were you sleepy in the beginning and then you woke up later? I mean, just anything that's honest and vulnerable, we would be interested to hear. Yes?
I was thinking that I would not have been able to read by myself, because here reading and amongst the devotees, I didn't even feel that so much time has passed and we read so much. So, but by myself, I don't think I would be sleepy probably. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a strength in numbers. Priya Kishori?
Thank you for reading. It was actually very nectarian to hear the whole, end to end kind of. And it was nice with the continuity. And I really liked the prayers by the gopis. And I felt like they were very poignant. And a normal person listening to them may think that it's like a girl, boy, they have that separation normally. But it's actually such a transcendental a level of relationship that they have. And that they reveal that in those prayers. That was very nice to hear.
Nice. Poignant. It's a nice word you used. Look up the word. Let's look at the origin of it. Their prayers were poignant. Can you spell it?
Poignant, I think. Poignant.
Yeah, and hearing specifically hearing about Krishna, his descriptions of his form, pastimes, his relationships with his devotees, has a transformative effect. I remember when Keshava Bharti Maharaj was staying at our house for about a month, and at that time he was helping to edit the Brhad-Bhagavatamrta. And part of the editing process is that you have to read the whole book. So I set him up in his room and gave him a speaker, a microphone that broadcast out into the whole house. And he just sat there all day and then read. and I can say that it had a very powerful effect. Also, while he was editing the book, devotees were coming over and we would read for a few hours in the night time just to hear the Krishna's pastimes and so forth. And just within a very short amount of time, hearing directly about Krishna, one can feel one's life transforming. Okay, let's hear about poignancy.
Evoking a keen sense of sadness or regret. And then it says, a poignant reminder of the passing of time. And the origin, I think there's only one meaning which is given here. Synonyms are touching, moving, sad, affecting, pitiful, piteous. And then the origin is Latin, word is pungere. And then Old French, they say poindre. I don't know how to pronounce. Old French is poignant, and the meaning is pricking.
Pricking?
Yeah.
Oh. And what is the word that means that?
Poignant in Old French, same spelling.
Okay. Is that how you pronounce it in French?
I don't know.
It's different from Bengali, right? Do you know where this? Do you know where the section is, the Brhad-Bhagavatamrta, where Krishna's leaving Vraj and going into Mathura? Can you find it real quick? See if you can find it. Yes.
Maharaj, when you were reading, especially this part that the long time passed like a moment, but a moment without Krishna was just like a very long time. That was kind of the deep intensity, one can, sometimes think and compare at least, how deeply attached a person would be. So that was the moment I really...
Yugaitam nimishena, says Chaitanya Mahaprabhu compared to nimisha. Nimisha means the blink of an eye, like naimisaranya means there's no blinking there. There's no blinking of the eyes, because everyone's so wide awake and hearing about the science of Krishna. But it's for like naimasa, yugayatam nimishena, the blink of an eye, that time period feels like yuga cycles going by for somebody who's experiencing the spiritual sense of separation from Krishna, which is another variety of spiritual happiness. I was just reading last night how Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur was distinguishing how some people think, oh, this is a very sad thing, but it's a variety of this intense spiritual bliss, this separation. There's two sides, separation and meeting, and they're like two banks on the river of this spiritually surcharged emotion through which that river runs. Yes?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. But while I was driving here, I was listening and I was thinking, oh, it's a reading session today. Maybe I would have heard online. I was thinking like that, but after sitting here and listening, actually, it made all the difference coming all the way here and sitting amongst all the devotees and directly listening you reading. It is very heart-touching experience. It cannot make a difference. Can make difference being here than being online. And I wanted to share one verse. One of the verses when Lord Krishna is talking to Akrura, and he actually I'm not sure, I think Krishna was talking, but it is mentioned there that those who have satisfied the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there is nothing that is not attainable to them. But they actually, those who are actually dedicated to his devotional service, do not actually want anything from the Supreme Lord. Nahi vanchati kinchana. That is something, the point stuck to my...
Yes, there's a description of Vraj in the Chaitanya Charitamrita when there's a discussion between Swarup Damodar and Srivas Pandit. Srivas Pandit is Narada Muni in Krishna's pastimes, and he's particularly connected with Vaikuntha and Lord Narayan, the opulence of Lord there in Vaikuntha, whereas Swarup Damodar is a pure devotee of Vrindavan. And describing the opulence of Vrindavan, first Srivas is looking and say, look, you just have trees and fruits and flowers and so forth, all the jewels and other kinds of opulences we don't see there. But actually, Swarup Damodar is explaining how these are all desire trees. They can fulfill the desires of all the residents there. But they don't have any desires except to serve Krishna. So it's very revealing how Vrindavan, they're so full of loving satisfaction and love for Krishna that they don't want anything. But actually it's the most opulent place, Swarup Damodar is saying, but that opulence is hidden from sight. Once Prabhupada's godbrother, B.R. Sridhar Maharaj, described it like in America. Some countries, they roll out their military and they show all the marching soldiers in the street and they parade these big missiles down the road and everything. But in America, there's you don't see that display very much. But behind everything, everyone knows if the military is needed, it can roll out in a second. So similarly in Vrindavan, there's no need for all that opulence, but it's all there. All of Krishna's potency and opulence is there, but it's hidden because of the overwhelming sense of intimacy and love with Krishna, which that opulence dissipates. Yes.
I was pondering like how Akrura was relishing about Krishna when he was coming to Vrindavan. Like Krishna will do this, then Krishna will smile at me like that. I could relate like in material world also, when we have a festival coming, we think I will do that, we will go out. Or if we want to meet somebody we love, we also think like that. I will say that, he will say that. So the way he was relishing, like, and it is like more relishable than the actual meeting sometimes. Nice
point. He also was thinking that although I'm on a dastardly mission from the demoniac Kamsa, still Krishna knows why I'm doing this. And there's this internal process going on where he's appreciating that Krishna will know what his heart is. And it's interesting also that he's doing this work for Kamsa at the same time. Krishna and Balaram are meeting him and embracing him, and there's always some topsy-turviness here in the material world. Even as we're performing our services, we may find ourselves in seemingly awkward situations. Did you find it? You did? No. Yes, no, maybe. Okay, we have just a little time left, so we have to do a little Bhagavad Gita. Actually, since we're still in a roll here, I just want to read you, give you a taste of this Krishna Lila Stava, because this book, written by Srila Sanatana Goswami, just the book itself is a deity. It's really beautifully created and crafted. Everything about it, the cover and the paper that's used and everything, the colors. In here, in this book, Sanatana Goswami is offering shlokas of obeisance to each one of the pastimes of Krishna. And it's a summary of all the 10th canto. And I'm going to read, there's just a few verses that summarize the parts that we just read. So just give you a taste, since it's fresh in our minds right now, what we just heard. Shall I? This is Krishna Lila Stava, starting from text number 315. Save me, O Lord, who calmed the Brhad-Basis, all terrified by Arishta, the demoniac bull. You slapped your arms and called out to the bull, making him very angry. You pulled out one of the bull demon's horns and killed him with its sharp end. Thus you destroyed the calamity facing Gokula, O crusher of Arishtasura. That's obeisance number 77. By having Narada tell Kamsa of your exploits, you enhanced the influence of Kamsa's bad advisor. Kamsa then called upon Akrura to bring you to the city. Please protect me. Though King Kamsa was astir with hundreds of evil plans and endeavors, Akrura was glad to receive the king's order. Victory to you, O friend of Akrura, the famous giver of charity. That's obeisance number 78. Victory to you, O Lord, when Keshi, the horse demon, terrorized Gokula, you threw him far away. Then you thrust your powerful arm inside his huge mouth. You easily killed that great demon. O destroyer of Keshi, victory to you. O Keshava, O crusher of Keshi, I offer respect to you, whom the demigods worship. That's obeisance number 79. Victory to you, whom Sri Narada, the best of devotees, justly praised. Lord of the lords of all living beings, your transcendental form has no limit. You sent forth the modes of Maya, which carry out the creation, maintenance, and destruction of the world. Your desires always come true. The words of the sage Narada reminded you that you had to destroy Kamsa and help the demigods in other ways. You expertly consented to all the obligations of which Narada told you, and Narada, filled with joy from the festival of seeing you, offered his obeisances. That's obeisance number 80. Couple more. When you and your friends played guards and thieves with some cowherd boys acting as sheep, the demon Vyoma disguised himself as one of the boys, stole your friends, and took them away. Victory to you! You caught hold of wicked Vyomasura, threw him to the ground and killed him, and released all the cowherd boys whom that son of Maya had trapped in a cave. Obeisance number 81. Here in the Brhad-Bhagavatamrta, there's a detailed explanation of Krishna leaving Vrindavan. Goes into a lot more detail. Regarding the Srimad Bhagavatam that we read today, there's just a few verses at the end that most of you have this book at home. You got it at one time or the other, right? Srivas Pandit has it. There's some really important prayers written by Sanatana Goswami. Keshwar Bharti Maharaj read them when he was here. I'll read the translations for you. This is the Srimad Bhagavatam Mahima Stotram. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, speaking about the Bhagavatam, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master, Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali, and you are the exact image of Sri Krishna. I bow down to you, who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth. My savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me, always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. That's obeisance number 107. Nice prayers that you can recite before you do your, how many pages are you doing? 41 times 3. It's triple down economics. Like in double down, but this is triple down. Okay, so I'm going to read you one purport from Prabhupada's commentary in the Bhagavatam. And this is from verse 3:636. Tapi kirtayam tyanga yata mati yata shrutam kirtim hare swam satkartum giram anya bidasatim tata. Therefore, api, although it is so, Kirtayami, I do describe. Anga, Ovidura. Thank you. He calls him Anga. It's like, he's so dear to him, it's like his own limb. Yata, as much as. Mati, intelligence. Yata, as much as. Shrutam, heard. Kirtim, glories. Hare, of the Lord. Swam, own. Satkartum, just purify. Giram, speeches. Anyabida, otherwise. Asatim, unchaste. So I'll read the translation purport. This is meant to tie together what we've done today, was listening to the Bhagavatam. And I think you'll appreciate the. It'll help us appreciate what we've gotten today. In spite of my inability, whatever I have been able to hear from the spiritual master and whatever I could assimilate, I am now describing in glorification of the Lord by pure speech, for otherwise my power of speaking would remain unchaste. Purport. The purification of the conditioned soul necessitates purification of his consciousness. By the presence of consciousness, the presence of the transcendental soul is verified. And as soon as consciousness leaves the body, the material body is not active. Consciousness is perceived, therefore, by activities. The theory put forth by empiric philosophers that consciousness can remain in an inactive state is the proof of their poor fund of knowledge, which should not become unchaste by stopping the activities of pure consciousness. If the activities of pure consciousness are stopped, certainly the conscious living force will be otherwise engaged, because unless engaged, the consciousness has no standing. Consciousness cannot be silent even for a moment. When the body does not act, the consciousness acts in the form of dreams. Unconsciousness is artificial. By induced extraneous help, it remains for a limited period, but when the intoxication of the drug is finished, or when one is awake, the consciousness again acts earnestly. Maitreya's statement is that in order to avoid unchaste conscious activities, he was trying to describe the unlimited glories of the Lord, although he did not have the ability to describe them perfectly. This glorification of the Lord is not a product of research, but the result of hearing submissively from the authority of the spiritual master. It is also not possible to repeat all one has heard from his spiritual master, but one can narrate as far as possible by one's honest endeavor. It does not matter whether the Lord's glories are fully explained or not. One must attempt to engage one's bodily, mental, and verbal activities in the transcendental glorification of the Lord. Otherwise, such activities will remain unchaste and impure. The existence of the conditioned soul can be purified only by the method of engaging the mind and speech in the service of the Lord. The Tridandi Sannyasi of the Vaishnava school accepts 3 rods representing the vow to engage in the service of the Lord with body, mind, and speech, whereas the Ekadandi Sannyasi takes a vow to become one with the Supreme. Since the Lord is the Absolute, there is no distinction between him and his glories. The glories of the Lord as chanted by the Vaishnava Sannyasi are as substantial as the Lord himself, and thus while glorifying the Lord, the devotee becomes one with him in transcendental interest. Although he remains eternally a transcendental servitor, this simultaneously one and different position of the devotee makes him eternally purified, and thus his life becomes a complete success. This is your complete and perfect purport, explaining how one must organize one's life around the principle of keeping engaged in Krishna's service, especially hearing always about the Lord's pastimes and instructions. Otherwise, there's ample opportunity for the mind to wander into the realm of the unchaste, asati, as mentioned here, which means that which is illusory and temporary. And only those who take the time regularly to listen to Sat, Satam Prasangam Mama Virya Sambido, those who are truthful, those who are embracing the substance, can realize it for themselves that this is substantial, and therefore it's an active process. Not only that, this verse mentions that one can do so as far as possible, because it's not possible to fully glorify the Lord. We read recently in the Tattva Sandarbha how, although we have 18,000 verses in our Srimad Bhagavatam, higher planetary systems, they have Bhagavatam that has millions of verses, which may make it more difficult for door-to-door distribution. Excuse me, sir, you're going to have to move out of your house now. There's only room for Bhagavatam. But practically speaking, those who are advancing in spiritual life feel like that. Feel like there's no room for anything else but Bhagavatam. And they dedicate their lives to hearing, especially hearing the Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad Gita, and entering deeply within it. And as mentioned here, there's no difference between hearing the vibration of the Bhagavatam and Krishna himself, or being in contact with Krishna himself. So this is the great secret to life, is maintaining chaste consciousness. And interestingly, we are members, or aspiring members, of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And it's always good to go back and look at what we're doing. What is the International Society for? It's for Krishna consciousness. And what is in that? What is in Krishna consciousness? Everything. It's a very specific kind of consciousness. It means to think of Krishna constantly. And in the Gita, Krishna recommends it. He says, Man mana bhavamad bhakto, always just think of me. And it's not possible to think of Krishna unless you hear about him and you constantly hear about his qualities, his pastimes, his form, and so forth. So that's something we can remember, is about chaste consciousness, and maintaining that integrity of chaste consciousness is a full-time endeavor, because there's a way in which the environment we live in is so fraught with impurity that the moment I stop my Krishna Katha or my thinking of Krishna, then there's other kinds of consciousness that will rush in and take over. By default, they're automatically there. But it's such a short span of life we have to think of Lord Brahma. What's his span of life, approximately? 311 trillion years. That's a lot. And we think that's a lot because it's relative, but you think a little ant that is crawling up your pant leg or something like that, to him, we have a fantastical and a fantastically long existence. But all the same, the life is specifically designed just for this cultivation of hearing, and it's long enough so you can really get something done, but it's short enough so that you can see the end of it coming up pretty quickly. Hopefully you can see that. I know I can. Yes.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, thank you. It was such a wonderful purport, very, very enlightening to hear. Prabhu, I have a question from the reading of chapter 17, which is that Lord Krishna says that the people in mode of goodness worship demigods, but people in the mode of passion worship demons. So that I did not understand. My understanding is that people in the mode of passion are in the middle. So they would probably worship, business, people who are materially successful. But Lord Krishna says that they worship demons. So I did not understand
why. In
the
mode of passion?
People in the mode of passion. So, yes. Lord Krishna says...
Well, if you look at the definition of a demon, which we did in the chapter before that. I mean, we didn't do it tonight, but if you're progressively going through the Gita, you can see how the mode of passion, the demons are in the mode of passion. They're contemplating all the time. So much I have now and more I will have in the future. That's their calculation. And so they're contemplating ways in which they can make deals with other kinds of demons. So they worship them so they can get ahead. Mode of passion.
But is it possible for a person in a mode of passion to, like there might be people, for example, in the world, I'm just kind of trying to understand, which is that, there might still, I think that will be mixed goodness and passion. If they are passionate, but if they are a mixture of goodness and passion, they might, worship something higher or...
Yeah, definitely. And that's the point of this chapter, the divisions of faith, is that there are, my intentions and my activities are colored by those particular modes that I'm influenced by, and they can be mixed also. So there's a pure consciousness, and then it becomes colored. And therefore there are varieties of endeavors in this world, including in the realm of spiritual or religious pursuit. And even as we read in the Bhagavatam, the ways of devotional service can be colored by ignorance, passion, goodness, and then there's transcendental devotional service as well. So we're heavily influenced, as Krishna points out throughout the Gita, by the three modes of material nature. But here it shows how it colors our faith, and then we'll endeavor for particular objective, and we'll worship particular personalities to achieve that objective. So best for Om Tat Sat. 30 seconds.
Krishna Maharaj, I was reminded when you talked about Brahma's life, I was hearing like Radhagovind Maharaj, he said, he was talking about the conversation between Yayati and Sharmishtha when he gives the example of he goat, she goat, when he gets a realization. So he was saying that even if one gets all the pleasures up to Brahmalok and you get the life duration of Brahma, even then you cannot be satisfied.
Yeah, it's actually proven through study that after $160,000 in income, there's no actual increase in happiness in life. That's the pinnacle of what you can be happy with in the material world. The rest is all just, it becomes a huge burden. Well, we tried. We did the best we could. We heard some Krishna Katha over 2 hours. We definitely didn't waste any time. Thanks for everyone who joined us online tonight. This is a yajna that can't be taken back. It'll be eternally effective and beneficial to everyone who heard it, including all the living entities who are walking around in here in non-human form. Gaur Premanande Hari Haribo Vanchakalpatarvishcha Kripasinabhevacha Patitanam Pavanibhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha.
Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman, hey, Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman.